just wanted to get back and connect with you before the evening was over or getting too late in the day. But what's really going on behind the veiled services in Sacramento, California? Unfortunately, we've lost so much ground in the public education system. We've lost ground because we used to be the best in the nation. California was on the top of the education game. And then all of a sudden we started falling off and falling below. Now we're right down there below where Mississippi is, or perhaps we are right there where Nevada is. Nevada is on the bottom also. But what I will say is that the federal dollars were flowing into public education, and there was so much money to be had. And we had Chapter 1. And then Chapter 1 moved to Title 1, and less parent involvement and less responsibility for parent engagement. And then, hey, Ronald, I hear you're running for office too, but I'm not running for office. I'm trying to hope that we can really bring some attention to the failed services in public education. I've been working with the family, and unfortunately this woman has 4 children, 3 boys and 2 girls. 3 boys and 1 girl. The 3 boys were all below grade level. And I think she has 4 boys, actually. But either way it goes, her oldest one, I worked with him for 4 years, and he was in special ed, but we were unable to get any services measured, anything. We weren't even able to get a baseline on him before he graduated. Oh, he didn't graduate, let's put it like that, before he ended his time at John F. Kennedy High School. And so then her other one, the middle child, he's been in special ed the whole time. Actually, he was at San Brennan, and he was, when I met her, and he kept getting suspended. I didn't really understand what was going on because she said he had a 4.0. So how do you have a 4.0 when you get suspended every day or every other day? Come to find out, the grade point averages was for 2nd and 3rd grade work, because at San Brennan, when you're in special education, they Z-code the curriculum, meaning that this curriculum somehow meets the student where they are, but they're not responsible to ensure that any student move forward in their education. So this young man, he is still in the 5th grade level, but he's in the 12th grade. And what happened, unfortunately, we had him reassessed, and now he's autistic and intellectually disabled, they say. And then they changed his diagnosis, and his diagnosis was changed. And so they put him on a certificate of completion. But what happened was, they said an incident happened with a miscommunication with another student. And so unfortunately, that was handled by law enforcement at the school site. So right before he turned 18, they came and arrested him and told him he'd be there until he was 19. They never even notified the mother. I don't care. The mother had no rights to anything, even though that we've been working with this young man since San Brennan. And here he is, a 12th grader in high school. And he had credits. He had more credits than his older brother. And it was unfortunate. I didn't know how he had all those credits, but somehow socially promoting students is just acceptable in Sac City Unified School District. They'll give a child a passing grade or a failing grade. It means nothing. The grades mean nothing because they don't measure the benefit of education to you as an individual. And so here we are. We are the lowest achieving people in the nation. Not that we are actually low achieving. The deal is that we can be as bright as totally, in the most intelligent human beings in America, but they would never admit it. They've stolen every ideal and every concept that's ever come from the Black community and produced it as if they were the producer. We have Blacks who are in entertainment, and Blacks who are in sports, and Blacks who are at the top of their game, and still our children are being defined as willfully dysfunctional in the public school system. I don't know how we save them. I don't know how we change things when we have children who are receiving letter grades of F and still being promoted every year from the next grade to the next grade. It's rampant. It's all through Sac City Unified School District. Go to your local high school, and I guarantee you find out how many children actually have enough credits to graduate that year, and I can guarantee you The majority of black students in the school do not have enough credits to graduate, and they will not be graduating. And then, so, every day at 5 o'clock when you see the squad cars, because when I sat on the district advisory committee for disabled people for the mayor, every day, every time we had a meeting downtown, I would notice the squad car would be coming in next to me, pulling downtown with back seat full of black young men. I mean, you have to know when you're the harvest, and we are the harvest. We are, I don't know. We are just the same as we were on the plantation. I don't believe that a whole lot's changed. And so, it took me this long to really understand what was happening. But I raised 3 young men. And my young men all graduated from high school and were all, I can't say that they're at the top of their game or they're the most successful people, but guess what? They're not in jail. They ain't in the penitentiary. But the children that I'm trying to support, the pathway to prison is real. And so the young lady that I'm helping, her oldest one is now in jail, but he didn't graduate. He graduated. He left Kennedy High School with 25 credits. But there was a young man that I tried to support a while back at Johnson High School. And I went to bat for him too. Somehow he said a 2-letter word to the principal. He was going to F somebody up. That became a terrorist threat. That terrorist threat he was facing 5 years in a felony. 5 years in a felony. He was a special education student. He only had 25 credits. After all that time in Johnson, he never got in any trouble. But that last year, he had, conflict after conflict. He had been set up, he felt. And so it didn't really matter because he was sitting in the jailhouse facing 5 years in a felony. But by the time I filed the paperwork to go to the Office of Administrative Hearings, they dropped that out. They just canceled out of that. And then I showed up in court and the judge kicked it off the calendar. And then they released the boy later on that day. But I don't know what ever happened to him, but it really didn't matter. He didn't go to jail on my watch. But there are many children that I've intervened for. But this intervention that has to happen in 2020 for public education for the young people means that every black person who ever paid a dime in taxes has to recognize that their voice counts and that they have a voice to ensure that if they pay taxes, that those taxes are going to meaningful services for the people who look like them. How do we allow people to work in our communities who document our children as being totally dysfunctional and feel that that's their only job? They don't feel they have a responsibility to teach health. They feel that their safety is more important than your child's benefit or the intent to be in the classroom. That's what they feel. And it's so real. So willful defiance is real. And across the nation, the last president, Obama, he tried to address the inequities and willful defiance. And there's a whole lot of information at the Department of Education online, U.S. Department of Education online, talking about the willful defiance issue and the Every Child Succeed Act in America. And that's actually what we're all operating under right now. But somehow we have these opportunity grants and opportunities for a lot of people who may not have qualified for those opportunities, but they're having an opportunity to qualify for them now because the money's been sitting over there for so long, nobody's taking advantage of it. Why not? Let's figure out how we can take advantage of it. Because actually, they give money to schools who are charter schools here. And the charter schools get money to support 2 or 3 students who are in poverty here. And they don't have to account for that. They don't have to account for nothing. Actually, they account, and they don't account to anybody. No one holds them accountable because this state is a states' rights state. And in a states' rights state, they do what the hell they want to do. And so because they're doing what the hell they want to do, it's understandable that they would have a 259% suspension rate gap. And I don't know if it's a gap, it's just a cliff. 259% of the people are suspended and expelled, higher than any other ethnic group in America. And so you have to ask yourself, what does that look like when 259% of the African American children in Clark County are being suspended or expelled or told to go home? And I don't know what they're told to go home to, because a lot of those children, they have 15,000 homeless youth sleeping on the streets of Nevada every night. And they have some like 6,000 or more homeless families. I mean, there's just a lot of poverty here. But then it's always easy to overlook because you're always, I mean, it's the lights, it's the glamour. And then if you look at Las Vegas and Clark County and understand that this is the entertainment capital of the world, not just of the United States, but of the world. And people come here from all over the world. And then we have so few African American children who actually graduate from high school here. And only 9, I think it was 9 children graduated with the ability to move to a UC, university. Only 9 last year. I mean, but all the data is online. All of the data that I'm talking about is online and accessible for everyone. That 259% suspension rate that was presented in the board, and then actually the board rescinded their responsibility to govern in the early part of May. But hell, I think they just went to, they had just moved to local control in 2014. So there's documents and data that demonstrate that the federal government has been trying to support Nevada in ensuring that equity and access happen for all people. But somehow you can have on Regency, Diana Ross and all the famous actors and presenters and singers and entertainers, and they can be on Regency or performing here. But there's no place that Black people can socialize really, because there's no Cotton Club and there's no Moulin Rouge anymore. And there's no Black people deciding how the entertainment happens for the Black community. It's not a conversation that happens because guess what? They don't have a conversation about what happens when the children are failing tremendously. We're not having a conversation about that. And I don't know how we don't have a conversation when 259% of African American students are being suspended or expelled, higher than any other ethnic group in the world. So you better know that 80% of the population in the juvenile hall is Black. And what do you do about that? Because you can't even figure out where they are academically sitting in juvenile hall. And just because they're in juvenile hall doesn't mean that they're not entitled to an education. But I don't even know how they measure the benefit. And they have they have people who are employed with CCSD who have programs providing services for people or youth in the district. I don't know how that works. But hey, to each his own. Pimping ain't easy, but I always say, goddamn, somebody has to do it. And they are doing it well. If your children and the people who look like you are so below grade level, actually, I believe the graduation rate here is like somewhere in the 40s, 40 percentile. The graduation rate for the Clark County School District is like low. And then so for African Americans, even lower. And so I don't know what we do this time if we allow this year in the caucus to happen, because this is 2020. This is the year 2020. And they're counting, the census is counting all the people again in America. We're going to do the count. And when they start counting the people, they're going to count the people who qualify for free and reduced lunch, who are limited English proficient, the people who look like whatever, disabled. All the people will be counted. And then the allocations of tax dollars will come back to those states. Well, in the count of this census, will the Black community have an opportunity to talk about the failed services that Brown versus the Board of Education brought to their community? Because actually integration, I believe, just stripped all of the public school system for the responsibility to hold themselves accountable to ensure that all children had access. Somehow it's just appropriate that a student would fail or get a letter grade of F and no one be accountable for the failed grade. And then I don't know how it is that children can go year after year after year and receive all letter grades of Fs. And then the district get the federal money for the extra support. And then they have contractors that they don't measure the benefit of support that they're giving to the individuals. And so there's just no measurement of benefit, no maintenance of effort. They just get free money. That's really not how it's supposed to work. There's so much involvement in the way that the dollars are allocated to the school district. And so, the money, first of all, comes to the county Office of Education. I remember when Margaret was going after her money, she wanted to have the charter schools, and no district was going to give her an opportunity at all to do the charter or to create a charter school in their area. It's not something they wanted to see happen because it takes away their students. And so they were fighting her. And I told her, I said, I read a lot. I was reading a lot, trying to figure out how the money comes in, but the money comes in for the county. And the county cannot deny a resource to any subgroup who's tremendously affected by the behaviors of the people who should be providing the service. So she was able to qualify for the charter schools, all of them. And it was amazing that she got all of the charter schools that she asked for, because the support for Black children in the public school system is nil or nothing. It's so difficult to move a student who is below grade level to the next grade level. It's never going to happen. We don't say anything about the number of children. It could be 85% of the class, and all of them not having the ability to participate or engage in a class. And like 50% of the children have these behavior issues where they're consistently being sent out. I remember I used to go to school and see children sitting outside the classroom door, not in the class, but outside the classroom door. And I didn't know where their parents were, but it wasn't up to me to ensure that they had access to what was going on inside the classroom. But these children have to live in our society. And when they're not learning what they should learn, and they denied an opportunity to learn what they should learn, then it's our responsibility as people who understand what's happening to try and engage local school districts to hold them accountable. We allow who? Who is really representing Black people in any area in America? Because you only really represent what's happening in your box. And my box is pretty small. But then we have these other boxes that we've been on for years. And paying attention also to what's happening on the big box. And no one can really lead us anymore. We have to lead ourselves. We have to lead ourselves with the information that we know to be true in our hearts. We have to lead ourselves with what's happening in our families and where the difficulties are. And then we have to hold the system accountable. We have to question why do they allow African American children to be in a public school system where they're being abused and oppressed and documented as inhumane humans. And we let that happen. We let that happen because social promotion or this willful defiance issue for African American children didn't lessen, it didn't lower in any meaningful way. They were not able to address it because we're really only addressing human behavior. And the acceptance of people who may not have had access to resources to even learn about what they should be expected to participate in, because that's not what we teach. I think we're really only teaching nothing. I don't think we're teaching anything. That's real. I think I have a little gap in the video, but it started to freeze. But it's just, I don't know what we can do, but I do know one thing. If we choose not to stand up, if we choose not to address the failed public services across the nation, we cannot continue to turn our backs on what's happening to our children because of how other people see them. They see them as uneducated and heathenistic. Because I don't know what you do with someone who has no education and can't access resources, and everybody has to have a place to shit, shower, and shave, and that's just real. We all have to have a place that's going to protect us from the elements outside. But after you're being on the public system for your life, your entire life, when you graduate or you don't graduate, but you no longer qualify for the aid at your parents' house, then you're on the street because a lot of parents can't afford to hang on to their children. So they do put them out. And then they're out there on the street making choices that they shouldn't make or shouldn't have to make. This has just gone on for so long with our people. We have to stand up. We are successful. We have knowledge. We understand data. We know how much money is coming into the school system. And we know how it's not affecting our children. But it's time to hold local officials accountable. And because we're only talking about local control and what local control means to communities and cities across the nation. That means the money comes into your community, and the people who you vote in office decide how they're going to spend that money. And then after they spend that money, they promise it to contractors or people who they choose to have over the money. So we have nonprofits that are over money, and they have been over money for years and years and years. Not that they've made any difference in the use of the funding. They just have had the opportunity to have the money. And there's no accountability because there's no holding any third-party provider accountable for the federal dollars or federal resources that they receive from the federal government. That's just it. So we have a lot of people who come in providing services to children who are in special education. And that's where we hold the least accountable services to measure the benefit of, because it's a violation of privacy. Once you start looking into a person who has special education services, you are violating the student's right to privacy. Somehow, you're not going to be accountable to ensure that the benefit is benefiting that child at all. And so that's what we need to understand. Accountability, the measurement of benefit, the maintenance of effort, and what's really happening around you, it's all of our responsibility. It's just not one person's responsibility. It is, if you have been given a gift from God, and your gift is the gift of life, and everything you experience in life assured you that you were able to be successful. That success transitions to the people that you meet, that you share with daily, and helping them to empower themselves to move forward with you, because you don't want to have someone who's next to you that's dragging you down. And none of us do. But we all have to stand up and fight for what we believe is right. And right now, the public education system is not working. It's broken, not for Black children. And when our children are killed for speaking out or feeling that they have a right to be overspoken or speak for their rights, or just entitled to be who they are, and then they're killed. Sandra Bland, come on. Someone help me with that. I've never been in that situation, but nor do I ever want to get in that situation. But we do have to recognize that this is the year 2020. This is the year that you don't have to follow anyone, but you do need to follow your spirit. My spirit tells me that things have to change for the better. My spirit tells me that we have to be held accountable for what we have not been held accountable for in our entire lives. I'm 61, and no one's held me accountable to ensure that my neighbor's children or the participation in the public process has even happened. But we are accountable because we all pay those taxes. We enable that system to continue. We enable the system of oppression to happen because they're going to get their tax money from you. It's going to come back, and they're going to create these programs. But if they're oppressing your children and you're not speaking on it, then that's your problem, because it doesn't demand accountability. We have to demand accountability and hold people accountable to ensure that what they're getting paid for, that they're actually doing the work and that the work is meaningful. We can't no longer just look at the streets and look at the people living on the streets and assume that that's somehow natural. Not natural. Because we were always fighting for better rights and sustainable options for families, and all of a sudden now we have people who get federal and state money and for contracted services from third-party providers who really don't care if they were able to meet your need or not, because they're guaranteed this money because somehow it was just written and they have a retirement plan written in that contracted money, and they're not responsible for the outcomes. But we as a city and as a state understand how that affects the whole community if we were to let one of those contracted providers fail. Can you imagine that? One of your big nonprofit agencies going under? But then look what just happened over there in Haiti, and how many houses did they actually build? I saw it on the internet, and I don't think that was fake news, because they're still trauma to those people over there. But Red Cross did collect all that money. And they were serving biscuits, and I don't know who the contractor was. But I know one thing, whoever the contractor was, who got the contract over the food boxes through the welfare system, because food stamps were cut and people got boxes for their food. And nobody had a involvement to say where those contractors went. But, people were saying, Trump saying, oh, more people have jobs, more people have jobs. Well, guess what? There are a lot of people who got taken at the border, and people have to have jobs to provide those services for those children that were taken at the border. So I don't know. I don't know what rosy road we're going down, but I am concerned about public education. And I am most concerned that we are not talking about what needs to be talked about right now. I want to have, I have a program, I got that Zoom program where you can call people and people can call you. And I want to have like a room where we can actually have a conversation and plan a night that we can talk, because we're not going to all come together at a school site. We're not going to all come together at in any club or anything like that. But we do have this wonderful tool before us right now where we can join in and start building a consensus about what's happening in public education to the people who look like us. I know that every one of the children in my family are brilliant. They're blessed and they're beautiful spirits. And we're blessed to not have anybody in the system right now. And nor do we want anybody in the system. But there are so many people that you meet today that have loved ones that are locked up and have been locked up for a long time. And then we have people that are dying in the system who fought for civil rights under the Black Liberation Movement. But then what was the Black Liberation Movement if it wasn't just an ability to articulate concerns about what was happening to the Black community? Because this is a suffrage for Black people. And it really is. It's difficult to see someone who has limited or no skills attempt to participate in a system that was meant for people who have skills and basic abilities. But, so you have to understand, somebody got paid for 12 years or more. They have Head Start, Early Head Start. They have all these programs in America that are supposed to provide you with an equal access to public services, and then you still can't access them. I don't understand anymore. I think that the conversation has to go far beyond me. And we have to have the ability to talk about what's happening. And it just can't be me, because I'm irrelevant. I'm just a person who happened to learn that I had to show up at the board meetings. And I was showing up. I went to board meetings for more than 20 years when I was the only one in the boardroom besides the board members. And that's all that money that they were determining how the money was being utilized. And then when they start talking about the maintenance of effort and how they benefited from the money, and then they start talking about the pensions and the health care and everybody who depended on that money, then I understand the conflict, because we're talking about the conflict of the lives of the people who are dependent on the money and the conflict of the lives of the people who are dependent on the services from the money. And you have to be able to benefit, because it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. There is no catch-up. If you're behind and you're far behind and no one's advocating for you to get caught up, no one's going to ensure that you get caught up. You'll still be in the second grade reading level or the 12th grade reading level or the 5th grade reading level and the 12th grade. And they still will graduate you with a certificate of completion, because that's how they fixed it. So they can just graduate you with a certificate of completion. It's no better than you getting a special education credential or certificate of completion, because it doesn't allow you to get federal money, and it doesn't allow you to access it in so many things that people just don't know that they got gamed on. And the game is over, because you can go back and verify everything that I'm saying is true. We don't do high school exit exam anymore. If you get a certificate of completion, I don't believe you qualify for the federal financial aid. It's not to that level. And, there's just so many services that you don't qualify for. And I don't know what you do after high school if you can't read or write at the 8th grade level. Those service jobs are going to be far and few, because even McDonald's is going animated, ending, you know, ending all additional human capacity jobs that they can, basically. We got a long way to go. But if we don't start talking about what we need to talk about, we're never going to catch up, because there is no catch up in life. And so I see a lot of people that I know that join the room, and I appreciate you for tuning in. I want to have a different kind of room. I want to have a room where people can call in, and it just don't have to be me, because my sister says I'm annoying. But anyways, I'd say Happy New Year's to most of you, and I'm going to try and post again soon. It's just that, you know, the children that I'm trying to support, they've been remanded to grade levels that are below 6th grade, and they're in high school. And so I already know no matter how many credits they get, or they credit deficient, they become, or even if they get enough credits to graduate, that they're not going to be at college level readiness. And so that's why we have our JCs that don't want to take kids who cannot pass those assessments, because it takes so much time to catch up. No one's trying to catch you up in life. If you don't either get it while it's ready, it's kind of like food on the table. You eat it while it's there. If it's not, then they throw it away. And that's what happens to your chance in life too. If you're not prepared to participate in the public school system, then that's it for you. So we have, you know, they're collecting data on the willful defiance as if it's something that's relevant to teaching. Every child has a right to transition to the tasks. The relevancy is, what did you do to ensure that the child had access to learn the task that was held, that he was being held accountable for? And if you never tried to teach him, I don't understand why you're saying that you have all this evidence that he can't do it if you didn't do your job. So here we are, determining what the responsibility of the public school system is. Understand, the responsibility of the public school system is what the parent decides it is. Because if you choose a modification of behavior, that's what you get. If you choose one that's in academic in nature, and you demand that they measure the benefit of what's happening to your child individually in the public school system, then you have a right to have that too. So you have a right to have whatever you have and whatever you accept. But I just like to say thanks for tuning in, and yeah, we have a troubling year ahead of us, and I'm hoping that more people will get involved. So have a good evening, and thanks for tuning in. Good night.